Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dave for PVD Horror, and I am joined here with a very special guest, an interesting guest, and I feel like this is going to be a very, very interesting conversation. I have Dell James with me, and Dell is an American musician, writer, journalist. He is known for inspiring the music video for Guns N' Roses' November Rain, which I can't wait to talk a little bit about. He's road manager for Guns N' Roses. He's written some horror anthologies and also recently has penned a graphic novel which we will be talking about called Consensual Violence. And I can't wait to share that with everybody and kind of pick Dell's brain a little bit on that. So Dell, thanks for joining me here today.
No,
This is an absolute pleasure, man.
thank you for having me. I really appreciate this.
And I already said this to you off air, but I just want to say this. I also thank Dell for wearing one of the coolest shirts. He's got a martyr shirt on for anyone listening. Wonderful film.
We 100 years ago, when Martyrs was brand new, we did a screening at my buddy's house who has a projection, so it's basically the equivalent of being at the movie theater. And we invited a bunch of horror friends, horror fans, and it was hard. It was hard for a lot of these people to get through Martyrs.
Yeah.
At the end of it, one of my homeboys actually said to me, I don't know if we can still be friends.
That's an excellent sign for a film. Terrible sign for a friendship. Excellent sign for a film.
Uh, I love moments
What
like
a
that.
reaction, though. Honestly, imagine and I will hope one day to create something that makes people question themselves
We all
or their
do.
existence. And I feel like Martyrs does that.
Martyrs,
Yeah.
that whole new wave of French extremities. I mean, it was brutal. It was cinema brutality at its most brutal.
Yeah. Do
And
you
and quality. I mean, it wasn't just gore on top of gore. It was intense storytelling
yeah,
and, frontiers, hot tension. These inside,
inside. Yeah.
well, game changers.
Yeah. Do you think there's been any other movements in horror recently that have been as impactful as that movement?
There are pockets around the world where things are happening. Like there's a lot of hard film in Australia.
Yeah.
Australia, The Horseman. I mean, that is an incredible revenge tale. Australia has its thing going on. Um, they just come from all different places.
Yeah.
It's somebody has. Have you seen Meat Kills?
No.
Meat
No.
Kills was released last year, and it's basically about like these PETA protesters going into the slaughterhouse, and it turns into super fucked upness. It pulls no punches, and if my memory serves, it's either Norwegian or Swedish or
Oh,
something like that. So these films, they come from wherever they come from, and whose ever inspiration, and we're all just grateful for those moments.
yeah. Now, Dell, you had mentioned to me when we were talking about Inside before we started recording, you'd mentioned being a part of going to a film festival, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so have you been able to do that like pretty frequently, attend film festivals and how did you even get involved in that process?
My I'm fortunate in the sense that I live in Los Angeles, and we
Mhm.
used to have like BFI and Scream Fest and all kinds of really cool things. But when we were in Toronto during the last Guns N' Roses tour, Toronto Film Fest was going on, and we got to see Satan Wants You and a few other films. So it's not as if it's always available to me, but when it is, I mean, I went to Fantastic Fest in England one year
Oh,
and saw, oh fuck, what did I see? It'll come to me in a minute. Adam Green movie.
there
Uh,
was Hatchet,
it was Hatchet 2. It was
Hatchet 2.
Hatchet 2. So we're fortunate that we have this thing called the internet that gives us all kinds of
True.
information and access to, you're going to be in this town that you don't know how to get around in. But by the way, the Vancouver Film Fest is going
Yeah.
on and they're showing uh s- what was oh man. See, this is what happens when you get older. You forget shit
I'm
you
with you
knew
though.
5 minutes ago.
Hell, I'm with you, man. I trust me, I get it.
My,
And even the fact that you named the few films you already named is impressive to me. And I say that because now, like your life from when people, if people were to look you up, there's so many different tidbits, facts, and experiences that have seemed to compromise, like compile in your life. That I'm like, damn, dude, this guy has lived a fulfilling, a rich life, and I'm sure that that's like just surface level stuff. So I can only imagine some of the things that you've gotten into.
I grew up in the 70s and I grew up in a town in Westchester, New York called Mamaroneck. Mamaroneck had a movie theater called the Mamaroneck Playhouse, and then the town next door, Larchmont, also had one. So between both of those, I saw Beneath the Planet of the Apes, I saw Beyond the Door, I saw all these things. Then when VCRs were first available, my mom literally mortgaged our apartment in order to get me
Jeez.
one, a
Yeah.
top loader, right? That we bought at Sears and then video stores. You would go to the video store and pick something strictly according to the box cover. And if you
Yeah.
knew certain theaters in certain neighborhoods, like Portchester, New York, had the Kung Fu triple features and things like that. And there was this whole element to go into the movies back then. Dudes would smoke angel dust and suddenly think they were black belts.
Yeah.
Um, I've been to the films on 42nd Street. And I used to go to, take the train, the New Haven line from Mamaroneck to Grand Central Station, then have to walk to 34th Street to Madison Square Garden and not get mugged, not get your concert ticket swiped, not buy bunk weed, and look at all the marquees and this, all the peep shows and all the glorious sleaze and you're 15 years old on your way to see Bad Company. I mean, fuck yeah. This is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. And before we get into consensual violence, I want to dig in a little bit on your history. And of course, like obviously one of the most notable things, it you moved to Hollywood in 1985, I read, and around your first weekend in Hollywood, you met West Arkeen and the members of, at the time, unsigned group Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
mean,
and you've been with them since?
you figured I'd learned my lesson by now, right? Um, yeah, 1985, August, me and a fella named Randy Piawar move out in his $250 Dodge Duster. We drove across country in, you know, some Hunter S. Thompson drugmobile fantasy where if we weren't wired, we were tripping. If we weren't tripping, we were trying to find our way to, road maps and
Yeah.
freeways and shit like that. So we arrive in August of 85 and we're looking for apartments. We see a sign that says for lease. Didn't get the apartment, but made friends with this dude that we bumped into in the hallway who's West Arkeen. And now Wesley he's Jeff Spicoli, but just more dangerous, right?
Yeah.
At a certain point, he asked me, "Do you drink?" We spent the next 72 hours, 3 days straight, partying with these dudes. Wesley's next door neighbor was Duff McKagan, and crashing on Wesley's floor was Axl Rose.
Oh
These
my God.
become my first friends. These become my tour guides to LA. And, you know, they keep talking about their band, Guns N' Roses, Guns N' Roses. I never even heard of like an original band with a name like that, like
Yeah,
the name is striking. It's got
sure.
some pizzazz to it. And I'm saying to myself, if you guys are half as cool as your name, you're pretty fucking cool. So we go to the Troubadour on a Thursday night. They play sometime around 10 or even 9:30. They're not the headliner. There's 40 people, 50 people there. And everybody had the same experience. Everybody was like, holy shit, this is something powerful. This is something potent. And that's the night that they played Rocket Queen live for the first time. And, I've been very fortunate to be a part of that world ever since.
Let me ask you this question. How do you maintain friendships, relationships with with a group for that long, with all the other influences, outside influences, we all hear about like the fallouts that happen, with groups and stuff like that. How did you manage to maintain your relationships from 1985 till 2026? That's impressive.
Um, I have a lot of respect for my peers who are also my bosses. There are lines you don't cross. There's a time and a place for everything. If it's fuck off time, let's fuck off.
Yeah,
It's let's get the job done. I better be on point. I can only get away with being Dell the friend for so long.
sure.
Dell the professional needs to step the fuck up. And
Was that tough for you to learn that, like considering you were young at the time?
here's the deal. May 13th, 1992 is my sobriety date. Every day before that was Dell the fuck up, was Dell part of
Okay.
the problem. Once I get clean, once I become a sober member of society, a productive member of society, I was given opportunities. And I started at the bottom of the ladder. I was, part of the documentary film crew. I was, an assistant. I was whatever was asked of me and hopefully didn't fuck up too badly along the ways because I was always given another opportunity to do something else until, come the Chinese Democracy Tour where I was the tour manager. And I'm grateful for every opportunity. I
Yeah.
was the project coordinator on the live record, Live Era. That was my baby
Mhm.
for a while. I've been in charge of organizing the archives and many different things, and hopefully I've done a good job for them.
Yeah. And, I just want to say congratulations. And, that's it's such a huge accomplishment. Got 33 going on 34 years of sobriety.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. There are two different Del Jameses. The non-sober one was a very dangerous, selfish individual. No fucks given ever. Sober Dell is a lot more responsible. Still no fucks given, but I
Mm,
choose which fucks not to give. And that's the beauty of sobriety. If I choose to do something wrong, if I choose to throw a punch, it's because I'm choosing this.
you're
Know
in
what I'm
control.
doing. I don't have the excuse, oh, I was fucked up. I'm sorry, bro, all that kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
You step up, you man up.
And I can appreciate that even more, considering I can only imagine the temptations surrounding you throughout all those years of touring. And to this day, I can only imagine. So I know that's not an easy journey. So, that's just
I've, I've,
more power to
I've,
you.
I've held drugs for other people. I don't have a
Yeah.
problem necessarily being around them. Um, it, it, I know that intoxicated Dell is very expendable.
Sure.
I want to keep my very comfortable, very wonderful lifestyle. I gotta toe the line. I gotta fucking just
Yeah.
do the right thing all the time.
Another thing that Soberdell has done is, you put many hats on his head. So you played the role as journalist, but I also mentioned author, and I read that was it 95 where The Language of Fear came out, that
The, la-
horror anthology.
the Language of Fear, my short story horror anthology, came out in 1995 on the Abyss line, which was part of Dell Publishing. It was cutting edge horror. It was uh, the splatterpunk thing had happened. John Skip, David Scow, all those great writers, and we were kind of the next wave. And I was probably the worst writer on the Abyss line, but grateful to be on the Abyss line. Um, and there was a lady, an editor. Her name was Jean Cavellos. Jean was the mother, the supervisor, the editor for the Abyss line. And when she took a teaching job and left, that's when that publishing line dies. And leaving to become a teacher is noble. So,
Yeah,
nothing but love and respect.
absolutely. One of the stories within that anthology is called Without You, which is said to be the inspiration for the music video for Guns N' Roses November Rain. And if you grew up in the time period when MTV actually used to show music videos, you vividly remember this video, and it will forever be kind of like, drilled into my brain. I've seen it so many times. It was always such an impactful music video. I almost felt like the emotion in the video matched the emotion of the song so well. And I'm really curious to hear your take on how did that how did your writing of that story lead to being connected with that song?
The story Without You was something that I wrote watching Axel in a toxic relationship. And I didn't know the words toxic relationship, or
Sure.
I
Yeah.
couldn't express myself, but I was concerned. So what I did was write a fictional account of a very similar rock star who is haunted by a song he writes for his beloved. And he got the message and then, basically paid it back by giving me the plug at the end of the November Rain. There were talks of possibly making a full-length feature film, a rock and roll fable, something along the lines of Pink Floyd The Wall, or
Mhm.
something very, very visual. And the videos kind of touch the surface of what that film may have looked like.
Yeah.
And, I get my book deal as a result of the plug at the end of November Rain. It's not like motherfuckers were knocking on my door saying, "Hey, you got any short stories?" No,
Sure.
it's like, "Oh, you have the short story that's on the number one video, bloody, bloody, bloody." And, I signed with Abyss, and I'm grateful that's that.
Honestly, this is like for me, even going back into my mind and remembering that music video, it's probably one of my favorite music videos of all time, like one of them, because I remember it so vividly because I just like the shattered glass, the rain, and the wedding and all that stuff. Like I just remember watching it as a kid and it being feeling so impactful. Like I felt emotion from watching it, and you don't always get that from a music video. And so just hearing like the connection to it and like the real life connection to him of an observer watching him in a relationship, that's amazing to hear that kind of layer to it. I love that.
And, credit for that video being as magnificent as it is should go to Axel. He was very, very hands-on, creative.
Mm-hmm.
Not like he sat back and had storyboards placed in front of him. No, he was doing the
He
storyboards.
was, yeah, actively.
Andy Morahan directed the trilogy of Don't Cry November Rain and Estranged, and he did a magnificent job as a director. And you got to remember, when you talk about the videos of the era, you would have your token model dancing on the hoods of cars, and that
Yeah, yeah.
was that budget, that was
Sure.
November Rain was an unheard of budget at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
And the end result justifies everything that went into it.
In some ways, I think that video, I mean, along probably with, a collection of others, really did transform the art of music videos into more narrative. I mean, obviously there's examples that were prior, but I feel like that video had a response, like played some responsibility in different music genres than just like Michael Jackson's Thriller, making like more story based music videos versus like just the Scorpions, someone dancing on the car and things like that.
There shouldn't be any boundaries to this stuff. Whatever your imagination can conjure up, as long as it kind of thematically goes along with the song, you could do whatever the fuck you want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of doing whatever the fuck you want, I have to just say, like, this was something I wanted to touch on actually. You've done such a range of things, right? So we talked already about involvement with Guns N' Roses and all the different like hats you wore in that relationship. But then we're also talking about, writing, journalism. I mean, you've been able to interview people like Alice Cooper, Keith Richards, the Call, so many others. Um, Writing graphic novels, going to film festivals like this. What gives you the confidence um, and motivation to just try so many different things, take on so many different endeavors? Like, what drives you?
As you get older, it becomes more difficult. When you're a young man, you're fearless. You know no boundaries. So, hey, I can do this. Hey, I can do this. Then as you get a little older, you start having, bits of self-doubt, self-questioning and shit like that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I think I'm just too stupid to realize, you know what, you don't know what you're doing. Of course I know what I'm doing. And sometimes I get lucky.
They do say, what is it? Blessed are the ignorant or something like that. Like, there is something to that when you kind of don't pay attention to those little intrusive thoughts that tell you like, hey, maybe I'm not that good at this, or hey, maybe I shouldn't try that. Like when you ignore those, you really can do anything. It
Dude,
doesn't mean you're going to do it well, but you can try anything.
the language of fear, those short stories were an insecure young man writing his ideas, his fears, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I, whose first book is a anthology of short horror, It's so unconventional, so ass backwards, but somehow me.
Right.
And there's been a lot of that in my life. We were we were on tour in Germany, and somebody had to supervise the live TV broadcast as well as the radio broadcast. All right, Dell, get in the truck. Like, how unqualified am I? And I spent most of the night explaining to the poor man running the controls when the pyro cues were. All right, get ready. Here comes a loud fucking bomb, just spiders and things going. Yeah. But you know what? No one should ever not do something out of fear.
Yeah.
It, I- you know,
I,
it's better to
I,
fall on your face and get back up with that
yeah.
experience than not walk through the door, than not have the balls to fucking at least,
You
throw.
know, you're so right. And I feel like I'm almost in the opposite experience as you. My 20s were filled with fears and anxieties holding me back from everything. And I feel as I've gotten older, I've learned you got to stop caring so damn much. And now I've kind of like an experience comes, I'm going to give it a shot. And I stopped caring so much about failure and just now I'm just going to give things a try.
arguably that's because you're more comfortable in your skin now than you once were.
100%. Yeah.
And when we were younger men, when I was a younger man,
Mhm.
I was invincible. No, nothing could harm me. No hangover could debilitate me. No, I mean, it
Yeah.
was game on 24/7, and I'm turning 62 in February. No longer a young man. Still think like I am, still
Sure.
want to do everything I once did,
Yeah.
but there are limitations,
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate sleep a lot more.
Yeah. And it's important. So that's good that you appreciate it. You know, I just want to ask you this, and then I do want to get into consensual violence, but feel like I have to ask you just for the sake of people watching and listening. Um, you're on tour with a band known to be pretty wild, right? Is there any crazy experiences that you feel like at any point you were just like, how did I get to here? Or just kind of make you like appreciate some of the opportunities you've been gifted in life.
Axel gave me one of the greatest gifts in life. I think I know it was on the Use Your Illusions tour. We had a traveling hot tub. It seated 12. There were 11 people in it, only one male, that was Axel. His bodyguard comes up to me and says, "Boss wants to see you." He's in, you know. So I get to this hot tub there's a tent for privacy, and there's 10 naked chicks, and Axel, and a spot for me. More grateful to be a young man you can't be. It was so just I mean, decadent, yeah. Innocent, yeah. Like holy shit, this is
Yeah.
you know this is the greatest moment of my life, or at least one of them.
And then it makes you think, that's an amazing experience for you. That's every night for this guy. Like, is that his existence?
No, no,
Yeah.
it was it was the exception, not the rule. Although there was
Sure. Yeah.
fucking rule breaking going down during the Use Your Illusions. We were in our 20s, Every e- e- every experience was meant to be had. You don't get into this business not to be a fucking choir boy,
Yeah.
we learned from Led Zeppelin, we learned from the Stones, we read these books and dreamt of one day having these opportunities, having these moments, these decadent rock and roll fucking fantasy moments. Uh, and thanks to my friends, I got to experience a whole lot of them.
That's awesome. This might be a known thing, but I don't know it. Was there any rivalries with other bands that Guns N' Roses had? Was there ever any like tension, things like that? Was that ever a thing?
I'm sure there was, but like, who cares?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, Guns N' Roses hit so hard and so large that the bands they were opening for soon became their openers or should be their openers.
Yeah.
And Appetite for Destruction is to a certain generation the same thing that Nevermind the Bollocks by the Sex Pistols was to England in
Mhm.
1975 to 76. Game changer.
I can only imagine. I honestly, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. One of the thoughts I often have when I think about musicians and when they get to a certain level of celebrity, how do you not almost like, so you're on stage and these people are just chanting for you, they're screaming, crying, all this stuff. How do you not start to see yourself in a different way or hold yourself in a different way? It's almost like you're being idolized. But somehow some musicians are able to kind of, stay humble. I'm sure you've probably seen some ups and downs with some of that.
it these people are the same people that they've always been.
Yeah.
It's everything around them changed. Okay, their status changed, their celebrity changed. They're still funny motherfuckers. They're still, in love with their instruments and things like that.
Yeah.
So, it's unfortunate that someone like Axel, who was incredibly outgoing, can no longer be that because of the mania and the hysteria that
Yeah.
happens when he goes out. And he's told me, he's like, Dell, I envy your ability to go wherever the fuck you want, whenever you want. You know.
Mm.
Meanwhile, here I am looking at him going, you have the world.
Yeah.
Everybody loves you and wants to be near you and, throwing panties at you and shit like that. But it comes out of price.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, it's funny because like you said, it feels like the world opens up, but actually in some ways it actually kind of closes down for you because it limits you in some ways. So that's
It,
kind of
it
an interesting contrast.
you know, you don't want security, you need security.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of needing security, um, so we have these two uh luchador wrestlers, right? Did I say it correctly? Luchador, is that the
Got
term?
it.
All right. Female wrestlers, in this amazing story called Consensual Violence, graphic novel, which Dell penned. And I'll let you give shout outs to the illustrator, uh, and anyone else that you want to give shout outs to. Oh, beautiful cover too. Such amazing artwork in it. Um, and this story essentially, and I'll let Dell kind of give the plot summary a little bit more in detail, but it's basically explores the world of lucha libre, and through the lens of this female luchador, and also tells a story of like revenge and yeah, and just I don't know, and also following your dreams. And there's like this other part to it that's kind of uplifting, and not giving up when faced with adversity. It's a great story. Dell, I'll let you kind of tell the plot line, give the shout outs, and tell people also when they're going to be able to get it.
The cover was by a gentleman named Robert Samlin. But the art on the inside was all done by a fellow named Arjuna Susisni. Arjuna is Italian. He lives in Italy and was a pleasure, an absolute treat to work with. Everything that I envisioned, he he expanded upon that and made it even better.
Hmm.
Colorist is a lady named Julia Brusco, and she has mad credits to her name, and she captured the tone, the tint,
Yeah.
the flavor of this perfectly. And the letterer was a fella named Mike Fiorentino, and all those bang, pows, and things like that, as well as all the words that you see, was Mikey's doing.
Okay.
So, Consensual Violence is a movie script turned into a graphic novel. I first wrote it as a script, and it's basically it's a rape revenge story.
Hmm.
It's inspired by Santo movies. That's why my characters wear masks during their big showdowns, but they don't have superpowers or anything like that. It's inspired by Kill Bill. It's inspired by Thriller, A Cruel Picture. It's all about getting payback on somebody who's done you really wrong.
Yeah.
And the beginning of the graphic novel is an ugly scene of rape. And our protagonist, Kristen Moore, is disfigured during this assault. She's an aspiring wrestler, so now she's got to put on a mask and go pay her dues in Mexico. And then it gets complicated. You go along for the ride between Kristen Moore and her tag team partner Luna Vampira, and it becomes kind of a buddy film or a buddy
Yeah.
tale. And
Yeah.
you like these people, until they're put in peril. Of course, you still like them as they're in peril, but now the shit has hit the fan and it's life or death. And much like The Language of Fear is not for children, Consensual Violence may be a big ass comic book, but it's for adults. If it had a rating, it would be R or NC-17. Take your pick. I'm cool with both of them.
Um, there is so much to like about this graphic novel. Um, the dialogue in it, like you said, it turns into like a buddy film at one time, but I there's so much emotion in it. There's this whole an amazing wrestling match. I love that whole wrestling match scene. I found myself getting really drawn in, and I was surprised how much it drew me in the whole scene. Kind of I didn't really know what was going to happen in the end. Like I kind of had a feeling what the result was going to be, but I was like, just the action sequences, they were just really well done. But I found myself getting really attached to the two characters, which does play a role into a later event in the novel. So yeah, I just think it was a really impactful graphic novel. I am personally a fan of graphic novels in general, but the thing that strikes me is when something that's out of my normal wheelhouse catches my attention and draws me in. I'm not super well, I'm not the biggest wrestling fan. I know you are, so I don't mean any offense.
No,
Uh
no, thank you. I
but
mean,
I also know nothing about the lucha libre other than like Rey Mysterio's and things like that. So why did you, and I know, like I said, I know you're a wrestling fan, but why did you choose this world specifically with the lucha libre?
like I said, it was influenced by an El Santo Blue Demon movie. I
Yeah.
don't remember which one it was,
Okay.
but Lucha Libre is such an important, ingrained part of Mexican culture that you couldn't write a story where the heroines at one point are fighting for their lives wearing masks. There's just no logic to it. But in Juarez, Mexico, it can absolutely happen.
Yeah.
Um, when you were talking about being a fan of the graphic novel is limitless. It has no boundaries. Titles like The Scumbag, where the fate of the universe are in the worst person in the world's hands are fantastic.
Mhm.
Um, there's no rules. It's it's not for children necessarily, although it can be if that's what the
Yeah.
writer is targeting. Um, Batman
Yeah.
and the Punisher are fucking hard at times. Um, and then there's also times where it's quite user friendly and just fun to read.
Yeah.
Uh, the Ed
Yeah.
Brubaker stuff
Uh,
is fantastic. Uh, Red Rooms by Ed Piskor, game changer. I mean, you want to talk about gnarly? That's friggin' gnarly.
Yeah.
The Krista Faust stuff, that it's all great and grown up and limitless. So I am fortunate that these stories that I've written, these scripts that no one has read, are there's an outlet for them in the form of graphic novel.
Yeah. I do think, at times I don't know that graphic novels get enough attention for their value. There's something really interesting about graphic novels that you are able to capture quite a bit within the realm because of the use of image and dialogue. One of my favorite graphic novels, the kind of the one that introduced me to that world, was Black Hole by Charles Burns. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it struck me right away. I was like, wow, I never really noticed the maturity that graphic novels can capture, right?
No, yeah, you nailed it with maturity. There are borderline X-rated graphic novels, and so be it. There's a lot of LGBTQ graphic novels. There's something for everyone. But again, yeah, keyword mature, adult.
Yep. Yeah. And I think sometimes people kind of like maybe brush it off as just like a glorified comic book, but it's far beyond that. It's able to tell more of a narrative story in the form that it comes in. And that's what I loved about this. The storytelling in this, Del. You really nailed it with storytelling. As you said, it's this got this revenge plot, but there's so much beyond that, so much beneath the surface. Um, I really enjoyed that. So, as far as the revenge plot goes, um, is it challenging, in your opinion, to write a revenge plot, but also make sure you're not what's the exploitative, I guess, in a way? Because, like, we always look at some of those old revenge films, like I Spit on Your Grave and Last House on the Left, and looking at it today, it's like, all right, does it teeter that line? Sure, there's some people who are adamant, like, I don't want to touch those films. So I mean, it can be a little bit controversial, I guess. What's your take on it?
I find nothing wrong with the term exploitation.
Yeah,
Exploitation films, exploitation literature. I mean, as a genre, exploitation films. Rolling Thunder is a fucking exploitation film, that
yeah,
it's a Schrader film, that's a fantastic film. I mean, Taxi Driver is almost a fucking exploitation film. So there are levels to the sleaze, and it's easy to point out Cannibal Holocaust or Cannibal Ferox as exploitation cannibal films. But and that's where the audience finds that's the audience it was meant to hit.
yeah,
People who people who The Exterminator, talk about a revenge film, okay?
mhm,
That is straight up 42nd Street exploitation, vigilante, William Lustig. These movies were grimy, and sometimes things are too sanitary.
yeah,
Consensual violence is grimy and purposely done so. You're essentially seeing storyboards, beautiful storyboards of a film that has not been made yet.
mm,
And, I've seen the film inside my head, and it's a lot like this comic book.
yeah. I think that word you said about grimy, like you're not gonna make like a Henenlotter or Cue the Winged Serpent and like films like that, and like not have like the griminess of like the New York City be a big element of those films, right? That's like that plays a piece in it. It's a feeling. And with this, um there's feeling, the environment, the characters, they're they could be good, but they also could have like done bad things, as we see with some, like there's this griminess in this world too, and that's a feel that you get, and you're supposed to, and I sense that, and when I'm reading it, like I'm supposed to not feel totally comfortable. It's like you're sure they're casually eating burritos at this burrito stand, but it still has this like grimy feeling to it, and I think you're supposed to never really lose that throughout the graphic novel.
And a lot of the credit for that has to be given to Julia Brusco. Her color
Coloring, yeah,
tones are fantastic and beautiful and not overly saturated, It's almost like you can see dust on pages and that lovely silver 1976 Camaro isn't spotless and shiny and
yeah,
you know
yeah,
it's all done for a reason. The kiosk where the tickets are being sold and the masks are in the background. I drove those poor people nuts. I drove Arjuna Sushisni nuts saying, here's the real mask. Can we do this? And the same with Julia. Instead of just coloring them randomly, can we actually, have
yeah,
Love Machine's mask, have Ultimo Dragon's mask, yada yada yada. And they accommodated me so I could have my little, nerd touches
sure.
embellished.
That's amazing. That is to have that level of involvement too, just shows like your love for what you're creating and how much this means to you. Um, just one more thing about this that I wanted to point out that I really enjoyed. The hype before the match, you feel it. It's palpable. It's like, they're doing like the interviews and you just like there's like nervousness but excitement. The crowd's, excited for it. You just there's a buildup. And I think that's what actually makes the match itself like you're already going in sort of excited about how this is going to play out. I,
There,
I
there's a language of professional wrestling, and if you've watched enough, you've heard it, and you come to love the cliches. And I dropped so many of those in there, and that's why it rings true. This isn't me at day one, step one, inventing a language. This language is tested and true, and let's apply the wrestling cliche where it fits. And hopefully I did a good job at that.
yeah, yeah. I really can't wait for people to be able to get their hands on this. I think revenge plots are effective because I think we all as humans um can relate to that desire if we've ever been wronged, like that desire to be able to exact revenge, or it's easy for us to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of others who we've witnessed, through the story be wronged and to understand how they must feel and why they would want revenge. It's a kind of an easy emotion for us to kind of relate to versus other emotions.
It's human nature. We
Yeah.
all want to root for the good guy in real life. It's okay to root for the bad guy in cinema. It's okay to root for the bad guy in a graphic novel. I can see myself rooting for anybody but. And the pro wrestling, we root for the good guy who has been done wrong by the villain
Mm,
heel, and the payoff, the reward is the victory in the ring.
sure.
When the villain gets his comeuppance in the revenge film, that's the payoff. That we waited 89 minutes for that fucking shotgun blast at the end to the villain.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is it's satisfying in some ways, this story, because you get the outcomes you seek. But there's a lot happens along the way, and all there's a lot more let's say heartache that happens along the way, which builds more emotion in the story. So Dal, I just, again, I just want to say how much I enjoyed this, and I want to thank you for sharing it. But I also want you to tell people how are they going to be able to get their hands on a copy of this.
If you would like a copy of Consensual Violence, the best, easiest, quickest way is Amazon.com. It's up there. You'll have it in a day or two. I think the price tag is $17.99. And everyone who does indeed buy a copy, thank you. Please leave a review on Amazon. That's so important to the life of graphic novels. There have been a lot of wonderful reviews, podcasts, friends helping me promote, and I am grateful to everyone.
It's great. That's awesome. So yeah, definitely make sure you all get your copy of Consensual Violence. If you love revenge stories, I mean, this is right up your alley. If you're a fan of lucha libre, definitely get this. But even if you're not, I'm saying telling you, don't be deterred. So like I said, I connected with the story right away, and I just enjoyed immersing myself in this world that was very unfamiliar to me. So it
People
was a
watching this
blast.
podcast, people that are fans of PVD horror will dig it because they share DNA.
That's right. That's
It's
right.
it's action, it's aggression, it's aggressive, it's hard.
Yeah.
I'm a horror kid. You can't take the horror out of everything I do and write.
Right.
You know?
That's right. And I love that you have never left that. I love that you've kept that in your world, obviously doing other endeavors, but you've kept the horror side of you. I love that. It just shows how impactful horror is on people who learn to appreciate it, understand it, you know?
Like I said earlier, I grew up during the 70s. We had five television channels, and on the weekend looked forward to Chiller Theater and Creature Feature. That led to going to the movies and seeing horror films for yourself. And I was fortunate to have two theaters basically within walking distance. And, I remember being at a screening of The Omen, packed. It was a 10 o'clock start. So, you're getting out of the theater at midnight and walking home, and everybody screamed during the decapitation scene. I mean,
Yeah.
slow motion, multi-angle, fuck
Yeah.
yeah,
I that brings up a great point, and we're always encouraging people, but like you have to go to the theater, everyone. You have to keep the theater experience alive. If we don't go, if we stop going, we will lose it at some point. It's clearly happening right in front of our faces. We see theaters closing down all the time. So if you want to maintain that experience, you have to make the efforts to get out there. And it's so much better enjoying a movie when you're with a theater of people than when watching
like-minded
it alone.
people
Yes,
who enjoy the same thing that you're the same, who are there for the
absolutely.
same reason you're there. My wife and I went to a screening. The Egyptian Theater on Hollywood Boulevard had an Udo Kier retrospective, and they showed
Okay.
three films in one day. But the main attraction for us was Mark of the Devil. I own Mark of the Devil. I've seen Mark of the Devil.
Yeah.
I remember during its run when the Mamaroneck Movie Theater handed out the barf bag, and it was mind blowing.
Yeah. I was literally going to say, I think I got the barf bag right down here somewhere. I could grab it. Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Amazing.
but we went, paid for that experience that you're describing.
Yeah.
We got to keep movies alive by supporting them.
Yeah. That's all we can do. And, so many films, the experience is just so heightened by having that large screen, having the surround sound, but also people really don't give enough credit to the experience of experiencing the things with other people. It is
Mhm.
a thing. You do get energy from the people that you're surrounded by. I mean, it's nice to watch a movie on your couch. Of course, that's a great thing, but there is something to be said about the human experience of doing something together. So
And that also happens at rock concerts.
that's true. And
People go there because they love the band that they're about to see,
yes.
and there's this communal energy exchange.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you going to be getting out on the road again?
Yes, starting in March, we Guns N' Roses will indeed be on the road. South America first, then Europe, and then winding up in the States.
Okay. All right. And so that will, I'm assuming, be towards the end of the year. You'll be back in the States.
No, the States dates are during the summer till
Summer.
the fall, and who knows what's going to happen after fall.
Okay. All right. So if you guys want to find Dell, you got to look up Guns N' Roses tour dates, and you'll find them
I'm
somewhere around
easy
the
to
world.
find. I'm on all the socials, Del James Gang, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Facebook. Yeah, and yeah, hit me up.
You're all over the place. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Get Consensual Violence on Amazon. Make sure you support, and yeah, just enjoy the hell out of it. Just lose yourself. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Have a great one.
Takes a lot of love for a person to